All right, I figured this was a good day to talk about collars. I have some training collars laid out there by Kipper, but we're just going to gloss over those quickly because what I really want to talk about are collars that dog owners commonly use on their dogs. So this is kind of like a combination flat martingale collar. The problem is these plastic snaps often come apart, especially if you have a tugging dog. Also, if you have a tugging dog, unlike an actual martingale doll, this can slip out. You can already see where it slipped and she's done a little chewing. And then it goes over their dog's neck, which is the purpose. A real sort of flat type of martingale collar is trying not to do. These aren't great training tools. They're good sometimes for dogs that have already been trained. They're not my favorite collar on the whole planet, or just when your dog's training, you're walking your dog. My favorite sort of collar on that is a buckle collar. Now, the only real con to a buckle collar is if you have it on too loose, your dog's jaw could get caught out there and it could break. Other things can happen to it because it's meant not to slip off, but it's not as dangerous as an actual slip collar can be on an unsupervised dog. It buckles. It should have nice hardware. I don't really care whether it's leather or plastic, although plastic holds up the best. That's why this is one. This collar is like 15 or 16 years old. It was my dog Leon's collar, who's long since passed away. I use it for other dogs. It has a nice sturdy D-ring that also allows you to set up your collar nicely so it won't slip as well. If you don't want to use the D-ring, it also has this ring where you can attach the leash to, so you could either attach it to this or this. You could hang tags off that. So it's a nice, sturdy collar. Hardware is good, not likely to break. I'm sure there are some cheap metal products out there that can break too, so you got to be cognizant of the materials that your collar is made of. This is obviously made of a nylon collar that was then wrapped in plastic, which is nice. Can see even though it's a plastic collar, it has worn with sun and stuff, but it will hold up much better to most cloth collars as far as maintaining its looks throughout the ages. Not that this is a fancy look. This one's orange, which is great for hunting season. So your dog has something orange on it. So this is a collar I would prefer most people have and bring their dogs with. A dog collar that can easily slip over your head and become larger, not on purpose, is useless at best, and eventually an accident or something's going to happen, especially if your dog's not trained. If your dog is trained, of course, it's, if the dog collar falls off, you can just call your dog to you. But this is not an example of a good collar. Watch out for the plastic. Most people buy really cheap plastic parts. Not that I like plastic as parts anyways. It shouldn't be used on the dog now because there's a tear in it that compromises the collar's integrity anyways. There's just so much wrong with this type of collar. Even new. This is not a good collar. All right, so many times when a client's dog comes here, they have an awful collar. So we need collars when we train that the dog doesn't clip out. So my favorite one of those is the metal training collar. I don't have one here. These also come in nylon. I don't like the nylon ones because they tend to rub against the dog's neck and make hairless spots, which isn't a horrible thing, but it's not my particularly favorite thing in the whole world. Hi, Keikos. Keikos wants in on the shot. The nylon ones can also fall apart. So this is a Herm Sprenger. These are the only maker of these that I will buy from, because other companies make them cheap and they don't have the things that we require, yeah, mostly the steadfastness of the metal. So when you have one of these, you can use it on young puppies just by not giving corrections, just using as a slip collar. So it's on the dog's head, the dog moves, it tightens up. If this was a dog's head, this collar would be way too big, but it would still tighten up. You could still lose the dog though if it was this too big, but it would be hard. It would actually be hard to. You ideally want the chain to be about 2 inches out. That's a good size. About my estimating isn't good, but I think that's about maybe a little bit more than 2 inches out. So there's no way, oh, your running dog, if you have it sized properly, can get out of it. Keikos thinks she's, I just realized Keikos thinks she's going to train, because this is actually the training collar we use on her. No, not going to train. No, off. So this is my most go-to collar for when dogs come here, unless they have an appropriate, if it's a puppy that has an appropriate well-made buckle collar, then we don't need to put them on one of these. The well-made homemade buckle collars are pricey, and I mean, these are too, but I mean, to actually find a well-made buckle collar is more pricey than these. These are to never be left on your dog ever when they're alone, not ever. Only when training or walking your dog or with your dog or supervising your dog. Otherwise, they come off. So I have some clients come to me with their dog tags on a chain collar like this, and that's a big no-no. That's very dangerous. What can happen, of course, is that one of the rings gets caught on something and it can choke your dog. Also, if dogs are together and a fight breaks out, if anyone grabs the middle part of the collar, you can imagine that is going to be devastating. Broken jaws, strangled dogs, injuries, not good. All right. So another collar that's useful for some people. Okay, because you don't need this collar. Either because of the density of the hair of the dog. Sometimes the density of the hair really gets in the way of using a regular chain or slip collar, and these tend to fit in the hair easier. So this is a prong collar. This one has a quick release. These are not my favorite collars for a few reasons. One, on a human level, is as I'm getting older, my hands are getting arthritic, and if it doesn't have a quick release like this, the little individual parts here are hard to close up. So like this one, I believe, yes. This one doesn't have a safety release, so you actually have to pull these apart and then put them back together. So I did that, but it's a little rough on your hands. These with this kind of closure are good. Again, though, this is a fabric thing, so it could get chewed through. Some of the Herm Springer collars, I don't have one here because I hate them and I throw them all out, have a metal thing that's a quick release, but those always get jammed and don't work properly for very long. So I've since bought them. Also, the only collar in a prong collar that I would buy is a Herm Springer, because they take their time making these so they're smooth and rounded. It's not meant to go into your dog's neck and pinch them. It's just meant to like close up and confine the space. Whereas this is not a Herm Springer. Actually, they didn't do a bad job on these. But see, there's a couple on here. You won't be able to see it, but like on this one is very blunt and sharp. Don't want that in some of these. So, but the point is, the factories that are not concentrating like Herm Springer does are just not going to have as so smooth, 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 smooth. The other thing that can be problematic is some dogs just hate these collars. Some dogs could care less. But, you know, of course, the dogs that hate these collars are probably going to be a reactive and aggressive dog. And using these collars can make your problem actually worse for you than better. It really depends on the dog, and that's more of a experimenting thing when you're trying collars on dogs. So this, I very rarely, I can't think of the last year I used one of these collars. They're not a bad tool, but that's why they're not my favorite things in the whole world. I'd rather use a chain slip collar. Those are my favorite things as far as training goes, whether I need to use them for a correction or not. And just for the safety of the dog, keeping them on the leash is good. So to sum up, around the house, please, a good buckle collar. If you want a safety release collar, that's what these are sort of supposed to be designed, or they were called that at one point. I don't think they have that feature. But, you know, get a good quality one. Don't get something with cheap plastic parts. But otherwise, my pick is the regular old flat buckle collar. Not saying nothing can ever happen to your dog in this, but I find this the safest option if a collar is going to be on your dog in the house while you're not supervising. Or on a walk if they're trained. Very hard to train on a flat buckle collar. It can be done, but it's going to take longer. Thanks. Bye.